Advisory Committee for RCPA. We do have a quorum today, so that is great. And I will try to keep it to the normal time constraints as best I can today. And I think we'll get started with the introductions. We've got familiar faces, but we actually have some new folks that we'd like to welcome as well. So if I can start right over here.
Will do.
Get started.
Shirley Johnson, Rohnert Park.
Steve Keith, Rohnert Park.
And Steve, just very briefly, do you want to just let us know who you're representing and maybe just a quick sentence about interest?
Oh, okay. Sure. Gerard Judice, Vice Mayor of Rohnert Park, appointed me to the position. I go to all the council meetings. I'm also Vice Chair of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee for Rohnert Park. So my previous job, I'm since retired. I walked a footbeat for the San Francisco Police Department. We love to go outdoors, so I'm uniquely aware of the impact that we have on our environment. And I'm excited to be a part of this group. Thanks.
Thank you.
Jim Shares, 5th District, Sonoma County.
Pete Gang, Petaluma. Andy Schrader, Petaluma.
Nick Bayer, this is my first meeting. Thank you all for having me. Excited to be here. I am also representing the 5th District. I live in Rio Neto. Interests, invasive plant removal and fire. Good fire.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Nareth, and I'm with the SCTA and RCPA.
Tyler Sylvie with the 3rd Supervisorial District.
I'm Stephanie Turk, and I'm from Healdsburg.
I'm David Leland, Sonoma.
Christopher Peck, Town of Windsor.
And just for other folks in the room, just quick introduction.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm BC Caps with RCPA SCTA. Steve Pierce from Spouseful. I help out with the Climate Action Committee there.
Hey everybody, I'm Anna Oliva and I'm the Parent Program Specialist with SCTA.
Hi, all. We here. I live out near Sebastopol. Day job is at the Climate Center, but not representing the climate.
Excellent. Thank you. And online, it looks like we have Adam Garcia and Steph Britt from SCTA, RCPA as well. So let's see, we will get started. Just want to see if we have any public comment on items not on the regular agenda. Seeing none in person and online. Okay. In that case, we will move on to the admin side of things. And this is the approval of the meeting notes from all the way back on January 12th. And then the information, it'll just be action on those because the notes from the committee of the whole are purely informational, as we didn't have a quorum the last time. So if we get a motion and a second, or any discussion on
So
those.
moved.
All right.
Oh, good.
Andy
seconded?
and Tyler, I believe. Okay, excellent. And that passes. And then moving right along, we will go to item number 4, which is the Equitable Building Electrification Action Plan and BC Caps from RCPA. We'll go ahead and present that. I believe you're set up as co-host. You're good to go on this.
Yes, great. Thank you, Rob. And I'm going to share a presentation from here. I hope this is all set. Should work. Hey, good. Good morning, everyone. My name is BC Caps, Climate Programs Manager here with RCPA. And I wanted to take about 20 minutes this morning to present an update on our Equitable Building Electrification Action Plan that RCPA has just started working on. And I have recently formulated or facilitated the staff advisory working group. And so I've been beginning to get input from staff at a number of jurisdictions around this intended plan, and wanted to present this today with some of the initial feedback that I've gotten from them and see if there's any gaps that I'm missing and get additional feedback from this group. So let's see if this works. Okay. So as part of this discussion and this presentation this morning, I wanted to go over a few foundational items of information that I've been collecting, go over our project objectives of this plan, talk about our project scope, discuss some key questions, and then talk very briefly about next steps. The full discussion for all these things is much more than we can fit in 20 minutes. So I'm going to breeze through some of this quicker than some of the slides I will move through rather quickly, and I'll pause and spend some more time on others. So the initiative or the reason, kind of the genesis of this action plan comes out of our climate mobilization strategy, which was adopted by the RCPA board in March 2021. This document has really been our guidebook that we have used as staff here for the last couple of years. And the first strategy that's proposed within that document is focused on building energy and what have been calling the All Electric Buildings campaign. And that's basically a campaign, a proposal to create a campaign to accelerate the electrification of existing buildings and electrify all new buildings across the county. And our climate mobilization strategy talked about the need to develop a kind of a potential to develop a retrofit requirement for existing buildings. It talked about the potential to require working with REACH codes to require new buildings to be all electric, and also proposed the integration of kind of social equity, racial, social, and environmental equity into this plan and building electrification plans. So that's kind of like where this idea has started. And now we're going to go about really developing this action plan to try to move that effort forward. So one of the first things that I've been working on, kind of taking a look at as reference, is looking at all of the jurisdictional plans that exist across the county for the cities, the town of Windsor, and for the county of Sonoma, and looking at their existing climate action plans, climate action frameworks. Different reports kind of use different different titles, but kind of looking at, resilience plans, municipal climate action plans. And basically, we've created a climate action tracker. It's basically a large database based in Excel that has a list of all of the actions that are proposed by all the jurisdictions that they would like to see in their local jurisdictions happen. That's a very large list. And so within that larger list, I've kind of been focusing in on the building sector, the built environment sector, and saying, okay, what are each of the jurisdictions, what have they highlighted as potential or as priorities that are around the built environment and building electrification? But then this RCPA, this countywide plan, could kind of build on and integrate would move all of the jurisdictions forward. So this is our initial list of what we have collected so far. And then in the right-hand column, you'll see some recommendations we've gotten so far, pointing out the Sonoma Water Adaptation Plan, the Regional Park Sustainability Plan, and some other questions that have come up as part of our first staff advisory committee meeting, and some feedback that has come up from that. Then on top of that, given the jurisdictional plans that we have, where I'm looking at all of kind of the additional kind of agency-specific documents that have been produced, and thinking about kind of wanting to build this on top of existing sources, existing work that's already been done. So looking at resources from the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, from BayREN, the existing building study with its forthcoming. They have BayREN hosts a number of residential, commercial, and public programs, of which we are the kind of the lead for across the county. BayREN has a number of codes and standards services related to REACH codes. There's a number of resources that come from Sonoma Clean Power. They've recently completed customer needs assessments for residential and commercial buildings, as well as agriculture and transportation. So we're relying on a number of that kind of those existing studies. They have a new strategic action plan that will be updated and is coming out later this year. And then we also, last on the slide, we also work very, very closely with the County of Sonoma's Climate Action and Resiliency Division and their home energy workshops that they host, Skype financing, and they work in partnership with PG&E for their local government partnership, which provides a number of services to municipal to jurisdictions. There in the recommendations column, you can see things that have been called out. We need to make sure to include Healdsburg Electric programs as the the municipal utility district that operates within the county. They're not a member of Sonoma Clean Power, but they need to be part of this plan and other integrated in. We also have a number of other PG&E programs that I would like to rely on and integrate into this plan. And then you can see, and I won't take the time to read these, but you can see some of the other feedback that we've gotten from the staff advisory group. I will make sure that these slides are shared with all of the committee members here after this meeting, because I'll be taking feedback here today and as well taking feedback over the next few weeks. So if anybody wants to read through these with more detail later and provide any additional piece of information, that'd be very helpful. The other foundation we're building this upon is looking at really wanting to deeply incorporate social equity principles. And so some of the existing resources we're looking at are the equity statement that was developed by RCPA, by SCTA and RCPA and adopted, I believe, about a year ago. Sonoma Clean Power has put together a program equities framework and integrated that thinking into their strategic action plan. There's a number of resources specific to social equity and building electrification that are available from the Urban Sustainability Directors Network and from Greenlining Institute. And then as a general resource, looking at a lot of resource, a number of tools, the Racial Equity Toolkit that comes from GAR, the Local and Regional Government Alliance on Race and Equality. You can see my recommendations column. I don't know, is blank right now. And if there's other work that people know of, either at the local jurisdictional level or other reports, plans, thoughts, documents that you come across that are specific to social equity, low income, renters, displacement, any of those topics, please, I'd be more than willing. Please send those along and I can make sure to integrate those into our thinking and our thought process. So I wanted to step then, so that's the foundation that I'm building upon. And Tanya and I have been working over the last month or so, basically working from a draft project summary that we co-developed, and that's what I wanted to present here today, and wanted to run through some of these things and really looking for any red flags or really looking for things that are truly missing. So our number one objective for this plan is specifically to work with all the local jurisdictions to develop a plan that does three things. First, we want to define a roadmap to improve energy efficiency and electrify residential and commercial buildings in Sonoma County. My hope is that this plan will look at all building types, most building types, all building types across all jurisdictions throughout the entire county. So I want it to be, we're not just focusing on residential, not just focusing on commercial, but wanting to provide a broad, all-encompassing view. Secondly, we're going to outline potential policy options and programs for our board and the other local jurisdictions to consider for adoption. I think this is key to point out that we as RCPA, our board can make recommendations. We can adopt policy that's actually not actively binding on other jurisdictions. They're basically recommendations to our members of a path to follow. And so that would be looking at things where our board could recommend, pass recommendations, and then we could work with the local jurisdictions for the actual implementation. And finally here, we're looking to engage with the community to gather input on the action plan and integrate equity considerations into all aspects of this plan. And the slide ago, you saw all of my work on the social equity documents. A couple of recommendations that have come in. And I think what I'll do for the interest of time, let me go ahead and run through these slides and then we'll go ahead and pause, and then I'll take all of the feedback all at once. In our staff advisory group, I really paused on each slide and we had a discussion on each slide, but let me just go ahead and roll on through. Our second and third objectives for this plan are to identify opportunities for coordinated action across our members and our agency partners. And third is to achieve the building energy goals established in our Sonoma climate mobilization strategy and the other local jurisdictional plans. So that's really looking for, at the heart of it is really looking to the transition away from fossil fuel based building systems and moving towards zero emission or all electric building systems as kind of those energy goals, specifically for the built environment. Again, you can see several recommendations that have come in here, specifically thinking about project grant proposals. This other one was, it came up several times in our meeting, was thinking about the role of building energy analysis as part of this work as kind of a ground that then people can make informed decisions. Thinking about the scope of this effort, we really want to look at it's going to be built upon an analysis of Sonoma County's existing building stock. We're going to really rely heavily on the Bay Ren's existing building study that is currently being developed, and that is forthcoming. That'll hopefully come out later this year, early next year. And we'll use that as a kind of a grounding when it comes to thinking about residential, commercial, industrial, public buildings across the county. And we also want to leverage the results from Bay Ren's existing building study and the Bay Area energy outlets. As part of this work as well, we are looking to develop a community engagement and equity framework. Was just meeting with Ross and Tanya earlier this morning around this. We really want to lean on, kind of incorporate the learnings from the recent Sonoma Clean Powers customer needs assessments and the specific work that's been done by USDN and by Greenlining Institute. And we were just talking this morning about how we could basically be able to hold, thinking about forming a small working group or a workshop setting of some sort to really get specifically focus on social equity issues around low income, on renters, on displacement, on things like that, and really kind of focus in on that as part of a special meeting or a workshop or a series of short meetings. And my third kind of project scope is looking at recommendations on the policy options that we would ask our board would propose to our board and that propose to the jurisdictions. And a lot of this work around the policy options really has to do with reach codes and retrofit options. So that would really be looking at some of the pathways that are being identified by Bay Ren to do upgrades and leveraging the program models from the state reach code, from the state reach codes program and the Building Decarbonization Coalition. A specific note about reach codes: this is an area that has been a lot of legal maneuvering in a lot of court cases kind of over the course of the last few years. And there's a new model for reach codes that is being developed at the state level and at the regional level that we think may be legally defensible against some of the more recent legal challenges. And so we're looking at a general model that could be adopted in principle for the kind of across the county, and then any individual jurisdiction that wanted to move forward on an all electric or on a reach code of some sort would move forward using kind of that as a model. That would be our best kind of our recommendation would be, if you're going to move forward, here's the model to use. I have several key questions that go a little bit deeper, but I'm actually wondering, in the instance of time, I think that unpacks and brings out to the forefront a lot of the topics that we're thinking of and that I'd like to get feedback on as part of the agenda packet. There is everything that's presented here as part of this project summary is attached as part of the agenda packet. And there is the questions that I think I'll hold for now are there at the bottom. But I think that maybe we can, maybe I should pause there and get a conversation going, and I can rely on the questions if needed. So,
Anybody have any?
I'll go ahead and stop sharing, but I can pull this back up if anybody wants to refer to this.
Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation. This is very exciting. I have some input about the workforce development. That's something near and dear to my heart. Remember when we used to have Green for All and green jobs for all. What about grid alternatives, you know, that workforce development? Because this is equity and workforce development all rolled up into one. So I'd like to see more of that involved in this. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Exciting work. Glad to see this and have an opportunity to input at this earlier stage. You mentioned Climate Action Tracker and the compilation work you're doing with all the jurisdictions. Super work. I'm curious though, have you guys been approached by Chris Jones's team at UC Berkeley? They're doing a survey right now to look at all the climate action plans around the state and then develop a tool that would produce climate action tracking across all the jurisdictions. Has that come across your desk? And if not, then I'll forward it to you.
We did receive it, yeah.
Yeah, we've received it. I have not talked with him directly,
Yeah,
but that's
I
one.
haven't had a chance, but yeah. we did.
I'd encourage you to fill it out because there was a bill in the state legislature, I think last session, 511 is what the number vaguely associated with it. And the idea is that the burden of maintaining these climate action plans and these greenhouse gas inventories, and then when you produce it, it's not standardized. It'd be nice to have that function standardized and make sure that everything is making contributions toward our statewide goals. So the idea is to transfer some of that burden to a statewide contract, impartial researcher like a university team. So the second thing, you mentioned a bunch of things about equity, and that's great. I'm glad to see those things in there. Have you looked at the MTC scoring rubric that they're using now for, in this case, I'm thinking of the transit projects. As part of Plan Bay Area 2050, for example, 2050 plus, the new one, they listed all the transit projects throughout the Bay Area. And one of the interesting findings is that the SMART train at the North Sonoma County is probably the lowest scoring from an equity perspective of all the potential transit projects that are in the hopper. And the other thing I want to draw attention to is our own general plan update process, our public safety and environmental justice element. One of the things that I can't remember if I commented in this, I was in this room, but I can't remember if it was in this body or if it was the SCTA committee, about when I got a presentation from the team working on that, noted that the current proposal from staff would broaden the number of equity, who qualifies as an equity community in our general plan, which has the effect of deprioritizing those that are truly the most in need in our county. So I just want people to be aware of that. For example, in the last 2020 census, what we've discovered is that the county is getting richer and people who are more pressed are moving out. And that has reduced the number of qualifying equity priority communities that we have inside the county, which means that if we don't pay attention to the ones that are still here, we might continue to have that gentrification process continue. So I encourage you to take a look at those documents, and I'm happy to share them. And then you mentioned too on the REACH codes, and that's at the city level, Sonoma, we're looking at that right now pretty intensively. Because Title 24 decision maker, because the Energy Commission did not accept staff's recommendation to require replacement of air conditioners with heat pumps on burnout as part of the minimum 2026 code, I'm hoping that there's going to be a template REACH code available for us to adopt. Have you heard anything about that or know where that timeline of when those REACH codes might be available? Because we're trying to decide right now whether to press forward with a 2025 REACH code built on top of our 2022 code, or whether we should just hold our political keep our powder dry and go for a reach in 2026, January 2026.
In a quick response there, there are certainly regional and statewide model reach codes that are being developed that we could easily pass on. I have several key individuals I'd want to make sure to connect you with. And just an example, I know the city of Santa Rosa, I believe, has basically wants to keep a reach code on their books, but their current reach code that they had previously adopted 2 years ago is now, there's legal ambiguity about it. And so they are therefore adopting a newly formed reach code based upon kind of these new model codes. And they're adopting that for the remainder of this code cycle. And then we'll be adopting, I think the plan would then be to adopt something very similar for the next code cycle.
Got it.
But it's based upon kind of the new model as opposed to just tinkering with the language of the old model. So
Understood. Cool.
In the building electrification work that you're doing, have you been looking at it in relation to building performance standards and policies around that currently and upcoming? And then also on-site resiliency as far as on-site solar and energy storage? And I'd be interested in those elements.
So yes, there will be a section talking about existing buildings and the existing building section talking about the potential for benchmarking and for building performance standards, kind of those two types of programs I don't think are active anywhere here in the county right now. But those will be outlined, both of those will be outlined as potentials for implementation, potentials for development and follow-up. And then on the on-site resiliency, that is certainly, I am hoping that this plan, even though we're calling it the electrification plan, and therefore solar, PV, and batteries fit very nicely into that, there will be sections that talk about the other things that can be done to a building to make it more resilient, even if they're not electrification specific. Things like home hardening, earthquake, seismic safety, wildfire hardening, some of those other things that will be I imagine being presented in some sort of side section, kind of that these are other things that are important to do, even though they're not electrification specific.
Just to follow up on that, I think that the full electrification question is something that needs to be addressed in the perception of people that they're losing resilience if they go to full electrification. I mean, anybody who's been in a power outage and has a gas range or a propane heater or something says, "Thank God I had an electric. I didn't have an all electric home." So having case studies maybe that address that and show how to get through that, and that would also address the issue of if you don't have a house that can accommodate solar because of you're in the woods somewhere or don't have the right orientation or whatever, how you would do that. So what the total picture looks like for electrification that does provide the power resilience in outage situations. I think that's a very big deal in terms of uptake.
Yes, thank you. That topic has come up multiple times, and I have some initial thoughts on it. But yeah,
go ahead, Pete.
I have 3 short thoughts, reflections. So the first one comes from my years as an architect, and as an architect, I was a zealot about building energy use. One of the thoughts that kept recurring to me and that comes up now is that in looking at building energy use, we started saying we're going to look at the characteristics of the building itself. We're going to neglect how the occupants use the building. We're going to just set aside occupant behavior. And we do all of our building modeling, and we set our benchmarks and our codes and our standards, but we forget to add back in occupant behavior. So the energy performance of any building, any occupied building, is a function both of the building itself and the environment, and also the people. So let's just not forget that education is a really important component. and you know, this is borne out by communities of homes that were designed as net zero homes. How they actually perform depends on how they're operating. So there's that. Another idea that always comes to my mind is, as we're pushing for heat pump water heaters, heat pump dryers, heat pump, mini split heat pumps, I wonder whether we're really looking at what happens to all the refrigerants, either at time of initial install, at maintenance, or when equipment is changed out, because refrigerants are enormously powerful greenhouse gases. And then the third thing is, it comes from my experience on a statewide panel that was convened to advise the Energy Commission on trying to increase compliance with the energy codes. And the subject came up of furnace change outs and heat pump and water heater change outs. And it was acknowledged that an overwhelming majority of those are done without the benefit of permits. We don't have accurate records because we only have records for the number of permits issued. So that's just a cautionary note as we try to enforce compliance or encourage compliance in the existing building realm. Let's not rely completely on requirements, because it tends to push people more toward just doing it without a permit.
Two of those three issues were chief discussions this past week on a statewide listserv that I'm part of.
Oh, good.
On the refrigeration issue and the permit issues. So
Great.
I think you're right on track there as important issues. Yeah.
Christopher and then Tom.
I was chuckling because on your third point, it's like, I didn't know you needed a permit to replace your hot water heater. No, side issue. I'm not revealing anything that I've done or might have done in the past.
That's what we all say.
Yes, exactly. So I wanted to go actually back to your point about the using gas as during emergencies. I think it's important to remember, and I think in some of this stuff, if the things to do were prioritized, that's often missing. There's usually like a long list of stuff. I noticed this and have an issue with this in like the home hardening, wildfire resilience type stuff. But for example, like the difference between getting an electric car and not having any propane on your property at all, I think are pretty different. Someone who is like grilling and they're, once per week and their outside grill, the amount of, carbon equivalent impact of that is tiny compared to driving. So like getting an electric car is by far the biggest piece. And, those other pieces, obviously then home heating comes in, and then hot water, and then something like, cooking with gas. I think I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but that must be just a fraction of the equivalent impact, right? So it seems like that's an important thing that in that educational effort, don't lead with induction stoves, but lead with, this is going to be 10x that problem, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, did you have a comment? Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, just to add on that, which I imagine when we're talking about it, we're also looking at the environmental health benefits, as far as like cooking with gas. It may not be a big greenhouse gas emitter, but it's got other co-benefits around health of the occupants. So wondering about that, all of those elements in the plan.
Yes, very much.
Co-benefits.
Yeah.
Nick and then Andy.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. That was wonderfully concise. I was wondering if you've thought at all about community solar. I know there have been some CPUC decisions recently that might impact that, but it could be a valuable resource here. In terms of, you say a lot that you're reaching out to all jurisdictions, and I'm wondering how that works for unincorporated areas, if they have the potential to be underrepresented in this study, and if you would consider reaching out to groups like Friends of Villa Grande, Monterey, Rio Nito, all those friends of groups that are common in West County. I don't know about elsewhere. I think that the risks and benefits of electrification should be very clearly communicated from the get-go to the public, because a lot of people, even a lot of people who are fairly well versed on climate issues, don't clearly see the benefits of electrification, particularly in areas with frequent power outages. And so I think that should be front and center. I also appreciate that you bring up equity a lot, and I just want to emphasize that equity is a process that must be continually engaged in during the course of the study. It's not just a box to check. And so as you move through the different phases of this, just making sure that you're always reaching out to everybody you can and soliciting feedback and stuff. And then finally, I was wondering if you've contacted companies like Farrell, AmeriGas, McPhail's, all of them about this. Being the propane companies in the area that don't have an electric grid to fall back on, like PG&E. I just wonder about the economic impact of them getting a drastic reduction in business as a result of this and the retraining opportunities there. But thank you.
Very good, thanks.
And Andy, did you have
Number one, I was wondering if you could send along the Chris Jones UC Berkeley study to everybody, so we can.
I'll send it to BC
And we'll
Yeah,
make sure it's
that'd be great.
included in the notes and
Yes.
send out.
absolutely.
Because there's a bunch of people working on that. I would love to connect them and make sure that they're all talking to each other. The Climate Emergency Mobilization Office in Los Angeles has done a really robust stakeholder outreach on equity. So I'll send you their report. And it was like 6 sessions, and they did a big report on it. And so hopefully that could be helpful. One of the calls I was on a couple of weeks ago talked about a tax exemption or a tax credit. I don't know if it was in British Columbia or Vancouver, somewhere, for multifamily buildings and businesses and residences, like a property tax exemption until they pay off the electrification transformation. So it's like they don't actually have to pay for it. They get a tax credit, and then it's paid off, and then they go back to paying their taxes. So it's like not forever, but it's long enough to pay for the transformation. And I have a big workforce idea proposal that I've already put together, and I will send you that too. But that's it. Thanks.
Very good, thank you.
Tyler?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you very much for putting this together and giving us plenty of time to chat about it. And also, everybody's very impressive here. And so it's humbling to be in a room with you all, and a little bit intimidating, but thank you all for all of your work and your thoughts. Have you already thought about like triggers for the retrofit requirement? Is that a sort of like a new and or substantial remodel as maybe defined in different state codes? Or would it just be apply to everybody? I don't know what the thought is there. Just that was a question more, but
I have no recommendation, and I'm not sure if the report will include a specific recommendation on this specific trigger.
Okay.
I think what the report will include is, here's a list of the 8 or 10 places where that could be triggered,
okay.
depending upon a local jurisdiction's kind of willingness to engage on that.
Gotcha. In terms of selling this to folks, do we know or have an estimate? I know it would probably be like very back of the napkin. On like, the carbon reduction per square foot of building retrofit. That might be cool. And it might play into like a tracker or something like that. along the lines of the property tax credit, it depends on which department in Sonoma County is busiest. They'll probably all say they're very busy, but I was wondering if there was a chance to partner with like Sonoma Clean Power and do a reduction on your electric bill over a 3-year period or something like that to help with some percentage of the cost of retrofitting. I was thinking more along the lines of business customers, but because those will probably have the biggest impact. And I don't know how unwieldy a program would get if it was just open to everyone. And then a few years ago, the Sonoma Marin Water Saving Partnership did an RFP and had a landscaper, I think out of Petaluma, built and designed these blueprints for low water use, native gardens front and back. And it was, basically a blueprint for, do it yourself or, hire a landscaper to follow this. This is more complex, but I don't know if there's room for like your home was built in the 50s to the 60s. This system is more than likely to work. And I don't know if that's something we would want to take on or something that the state might work on, where you could have some blueprints for some retrofitting plans, at least maybe get some of the work done for folks. That might be too pie in the sky. And then I'll have to think more on names, but Electrify Sonoma, Power Sonoma.
Very good. Thank you.
Any last comments? Go ahead, Stephanie.
I have just a consideration for the plan, and that's the communities that we have scattered around the county that are trailer home communities, trailer parks, right? So they are, or manufactured homes, modular homes. They are often really limited in the amount of electricity that those homes can handle. I don't want to see them getting left behind with the conversion, but some of those homes are like 50 amps, 100 amps. You can't power a whole home and all the appliances on that, so.
There are another very hot topic at statewide level discussions and a whole series of very brilliant people who are working on what needs to be done within a 50 amp budget. How do you do it? And so there are some models coming forward, and I think we can highlight those. Talking about that, that's a great suggestion. Thank you. That's good news.
One more. I think at the beginning you mentioned that there was a database or just maybe Excel spreadsheet with all these recommendations that you've gotten so far. And I wonder if it's possible to share that and also have commentary on various pieces. The only reason I say that is because, like, for example, one of the suggestions or recommendations was, educating people about various things. And I have to admit to a certain degree of skepticism at the moment about the time value and dollar value of that, only because we just went through, how many billions of dollars of IRA money. And like, I don't think the weak link is people don't know what a heat pump is. I think it's getting a contractor, or will it work in my house, or there's lots of other problems way before like, oh, I should do that. Even works for hot water, domestic hot water. But so that would be something I think it's connected to my prioritization point of like, in terms of how to allocate time and money on these various projects, certain things seem way more crucial to me than others. And I was going to follow, I did see a thing, I think Sharon Armstrong posted this about a study that people did on the 50 amp panel. It was like almost nobody, even in 100 amp panel houses, is using like 50 amps. Like people could do it. And I actually went and did that and downloaded all in my power and converted it to amp draw. And there was never a 15-minute period where I was using more than like 6 amps or something. It was crazy. Now, of course, that's not perfect because, it's a 15-minute kilowatt hour that you're converting to amps, but it was pretty stunning. I was like, wow, because I was operating under the same assumption. Like, I can't do all these things because I have a 100 amp panel, but apparently I could if I had a big enough panel.
Any last comments before we check with public? Andy?
I just wanted to give a +1 to what June mentioned in terms of talking about gas, adding health impacts, but also I remember when Mexico City had its big earthquake. It was a while ago now, but there were entire buildings that caught fire because of the gas, and people died because the gas was so explosive and So it's not just health benefits, but the dangers of methane.
I've got one quick one and then public comment here.
Yeah, and just good comments around the table and about workforce development. Do we have a good list, or does Sonoma Clean Power have a list of the sort of the state of our contractor community countywide? Because one of the barriers we know we run into is, a lot of the contractors are not fully supportive necessarily of the things that we know we need to do because they just don't have the experience. So having some kind of qualitative and quantitative assessment of where those gaps might be helpful as you bring this program into the field.
And we'll open it up to public comment. Did you get what you needed, BC?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Excellent. Any public comment? Go ahead. And well, let's get you a mic if you want to. You want to squeeze in there. Come, yeah.
Hi, Steve Pierce from Sebastopol. I had a question. I think it was on your first slide. We talked about a date certain retrofit requirement that's funded and phased. My first question is, has any jurisdiction in California done that? And is any jurisdiction examining that right now that we can piggyback on their research work for that? I want to, speaking of piggyback, on the comment that Tom just made, in Cool Petaluma and in Sebastopol, we've come to the conclusion that contractors are key to this. They're the ones that are out there on the ground selling the improvements or not, in the case that Tom described. And we need not only their buy-in, we need we need them to be educated. There are a lot of programs that are out there, but contractors often will say, it's just too much hassle. I don't want to get involved. I'll just drop a little bit of my price, see if I can be competitive with this other contractor who is involved in the programs. So how we address not just workforce issues, but the ongoing almost reluctance of contractors to get educated and pursue these. And then I have a question. If right now we're kind of going out to talk to staff around various jurisdictions, it seemed like step back a couple of years ago when we were in the middle of trying to promote a potential funding source for this. We had a larger group advising the RCPA, and that might be a role for this committee or another group, but it seems like staff often has a lot on their plate and they don't necessarily have the interest or expertise in these issues. And I think it might be an opportunity to reform some group that assists. And then I want to also follow up that I think we need some kind of estimates of, if we do this to this degree, we expect this kind of impact. How many houses get retrofitted with their water heater, or how much additional insulation or weatherization? Can we start to see the needle on natural gas dropping? Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. Very good.
And Ross, really, if I could, really quick, just a couple of quick, on the date certain, on the retrofit requirement, I do not know of any working examples. That is a key thing that I can check into. On the buildings, on the advisory group, I very much have intention to call upon kind of the individuals who participated as part of the buildings committee previously. And I hear you very loudly on the estimates of scale, those numbers. Yeah. So thank you.
Woody, do you have a comment?
I do. Hi, again, Woody Hastings, West County. First, I just want to affirm what Steve just said about the contractors being key. From personal experience, having contractors come out to install heat pump, water heaters, and space heaters, and making snarky comments and saying gas is better, literally, and other just sort of ignorance on the part of the contractors and the folks they send out to people's houses. I'm chiming in to mention, I'm not sure it's relevant to this because it sounds like it's mostly the existing, electrifying the existing building stock, but Climate Action California is an organization that has a campaign underway. They've built a coalition now of about 70, it's mostly organizations and small organizations from around the state, enviro groups and whatnot, and architects and builders. Coalition pushing for passive house standards in the Title 24. It's really all around new construction though. But just wondering if RCPA is aware of that and if there's any degree of interest in doing whatever it is RCPA can do to help push, take a look at that concept and what the campaign has in play around, passive house standards. I would imagine most folks here know what passive house is all about, the concept for super efficient, buildings that take into account the existing environment and whatnot. So anyway, that's the thought. Thanks.
Thank you, Woody. And are you able to pass along that climate action? Sure. I'm not familiar with that group. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Let's see, moving on to number 6, I will briefly present some changes that we have proposed to the
Number 5.
I do mean number 5. Thank you. It's Friday.
And here, before we move on, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, BC.
Thank you, BC.
Always great.
See, before you go, just one last thing. You had mentioned a equity subcommittee. And I would just, express interest in being a part of that or following up on that.
Very good. I'll follow up directly with you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Great.
So let's see, as you may have seen in the agenda packet, we've proposed some updates to the charter of this committee based on feedback that we've gotten from this committee. And so we wanted to kind of give that back to you, hear what you have to say about it, if that sounds correct, and then we will bring the recommendations to our board in November. So basically, based on feedback from the committee, the interest of being able to include all the content that we want to include, and of course regularly achieve a quorum. We did today, which is great, but we have had some challenges with that in the past. So we assembled an updated charter, ran it through county legal. Both the track changes and the clean versions of the new charter are included in the agenda packet, and I know there's a few full printed versions. I'm happy to print more if necessary. But the main changes are as follows. So we're currently quarterly. We're proposing to update to schedule 6 meetings per year. Just because we have enough content and enough things that we want feedback on, and a lot of things that are great to communicate between jurisdictions. We just want room for that. And then as for the quorum, we really want to make sure that we can take action on things. Sometimes it's just the notes, but a lot of times it's more than that. And so what we've proposed and kind of run through legal is to have, rather than individuals be counted towards the quorum, each seat. So essentially, everyone here is committee members are appointed by one of our board members. And so each board members basically have a seat or a slot. If both people show up from that jurisdiction, it counts as 1 towards the quorum. If one person shows up, it counts as 1 towards the quorum. However, if there is a voting item, each individual would have a vote. I think I'm explaining that right, Tanya. So it's a little, so basically that would significantly lower the threshold to achieve a quorum. And then the other thing, and this would affect what I'm doing here, we're proposing to elect a chair and a vice chair. So I'm just a staffer, just kind of keeping it moving along, and I'll still staff the meeting, but I think it might be good to have someone from the committee actually run the meetings. And so if proposed, if it all goes through, we would hold an election, I believe, at the January meeting to start that process. And then lastly, it's kind of minor, but the CAC also, CAAC, would be asked to provide feedback on some Go Sonoma transportation projects. So previously Measure M was not, the Measure M tax measure was not really part of what the CAAC did. However, Go Sonoma does have in its language that it does want feedback from this committee. So there would be not too much, but there would be occasionally some transportation items because hey, it's the biggest GHG emitter. And then lastly, the language about not making official recommendations to the board or other bodies has been removed. Just because there will be some occasions where we do want recommendations to go to the board, and plus it's a little disheartening to see that in the charter. It's like, well, what are we doing? So we'll look for some discussion on this, and then we would like to bring this to the board in November. And if approved, it takes two board meetings. You got to present it, and then they would vote on it, and then hopefully next year adapt the changes. So any comments on that, Tyler?
Math is not the sector that I'm representing. So can you further explain the quorum thing? Because I'm thinking Tom and I are here.
Right.
If this was in place, we wouldn't have a quorum today.
Well, we'd
And
still.
There's also two Runner Park folks, right?
Supposedly this works. Math is not what I represent either. But I believe we are still using the vacancy requirements that were established. So like, basically if there's nobody for a jurisdiction, that's not gonna be there. I think, do you have any input, Tanya?
Because we do say in here, it requires representation by at least one appointment from the majority of directors. So that would mean we'd have to have seven people here who were appointed by different directors.
And each director gets two. Each director gets two.
Right.
So the total membership is 14. So fully half of us could not
We have
show
12
up.
directors.
We have only 12.
directors. Yeah, 12 directors, 24.
24.
members, so that would still be the same. And what we're saying is that a majority of those 12. Is that doing the math right? 7.
Could be seven.
Would,
Maybe.
you'd need, the representatives from 7 directors would need to be here.
But do we even have that today? We don't have that today.
We do.
Yeah.
So everybody, maybe we could just go around because I'm not sure to put everybody in there director, but
I think we do, actually. I think
Yeah.
it's exactly 7 if I counted right.
And what was the math before? So now you're saying 7 of 12.
It
but
was a
before
majority of the appointed seats, so, and Ross, you'll probably explain this better than I, so.
Yeah,
If we had all 24 seats appointed, it would be 13.
13 of 24, or
yeah. Now, the one thing I would say, if there's any jurisdictions that have,
yeah, it goes to attendance.
yeah. The two-edged sword side of this would be that if there's vacancies,
Right.
it would still depend on the one person that is not in the vacancy to show up. So,
I think it's good policy. I just wanted to clarify what it meant and what it would mean for us here. Because you would ideally want that representation from the majority of the appointees.
absolutely.
Even if I think, District 3 has all the best ideas or something.
So, Rob, just to clarify, if one of the SCT RCPA directors has 2 vacancies, if they
have
not-
two vacancies,
how would that
then
work?
we would fully, using our other vacancy policy that we use for like Citizens Advisory Committee and our other committees, that would lower the necessary number by 1.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that means if they're having difficulty finding representatives, it doesn't burden our ability to achieve a quorum and move on without that director's action. But it does focus our attention on that director and try to help them to find somebody.
And I will note that, in the interest of that too, what we've done previously is kind of relax. We require people to live in Sonoma County, but not necessarily that district if they do have a connection with with the director.
Yeah, I just want to, assuming I did my counting correctly, I just looked back at the roster from the past meetings through last January. And it looks like, again, if I counted correctly, under this new proposed quorum rule, we would have had a quorum at every past meeting, so. With using the set.
That's the info.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, that's better. Yeah, other comments, Andy?
I don't want to beat a horse that I've already beat on this morning, but if you made it easier for us to remember to be here. Because I
Sure.
literally, you all weren't involved in this, but we've been going back and forth. I looked for the meeting agenda or that we had a meeting and it wasn't on the calendar and I wasn't on the email list. So I was just like, oh, I guess we don't have a meeting today. I was like, hey, Pete, do we have a meeting? He's like, yeah, here's the agenda. So
Our apologies, and that's.
I'm just, make it easier and we'll be here.
Definitely notify, we gotta let you know if we expect you to show up. Absolutely.
So one clarification, will that responsibility then fall to the chair and vice chair? Or will it still remain on
No,
staff?
that would still be staff.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the chairs and vice chair, then they're scheduling the time or they're just facilitating?
Just facilitate.
Okay.
So
And providing input to the agenda, so, typically Ross, for our CAC, Ross consults with the chair of the committee to see if the chair has any
Yep.
input on the agenda, and then the chair facilitates the meeting, but, Ross is the staff support and does all the logistical
Okay. great.
scheduling, all that.
All right.
Yeah.
And under Brown Act, we can still have interpersonal communications between meetings, but not at a threshold that exceeds that Brown Act maximum. But then the chair and the vice chair would be able to participate and help set the agenda. So if somebody sees something, wants to get it onto the agenda, the proper channel is to let staff know or let your chair know.
I think these changes are really welcome and thank you very much. We had a conversation previously about, I think I just was really confused what our role was and especially crossing out this line about not having direct communications or giving any input. I was, well, what are we doing? So I think that's great. And I also think you kind of get thrown in and then you're without having, I was never given a copy of the charter and maybe that was my experience, but I didn't really know what the role was. So I think going forward with new people, we should have like a welcome,
Definitely.
here's this thing to read and like, this is what's expected of you, so.
Absolutely. And I would invite anyone, whether you're new or even not, we're always happy to, I can always send out the briefing book, charter, all that kind of stuff, links to past video meetings, but also we can also have a meeting either virtual or in person. So don't hesitate to reach out and clarify things. So, yeah.
Thanks.
Any other comments on this? How does everyone feel about bringing this to the board?
Great.
I will make a motion that we recommend
I don't know if this is an official action. Is this something?
I'm gonna make it anyway.
We will take, we'll take it.
I'll make a motion that we take a straw vote poll here and toward recommending this change to our charter, recommend that to our board.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much. And I just, on a personal note, I enjoy facilitating, but I'm kind of like Tyler said, I'm just learning and there's a lot more climate expertise in the room. So I think it would also be good to have someone that's a little more experienced and locked in and can really know what to focus on. So thank you. And let's see, let's go ahead. Is there any public comment on that item? In that case, we will now move on to number 6 and do a report out for members by jurisdiction. Sometimes this is brief, sometimes this is not brief, depending on what's going on. So go ahead and start on this side this time.
Okay, so Christopher Peck, Town of Windsor. I think we actually are the grooviest jurisdiction in the county. Tyler, you were trying to claim that, but I think we are still holding that. A few weeks ago, the Town of Windsor hosted and I attended a great presentation at the wastewater treatment plant, which has committed to a net zero and is actually very well on the path. Like they even have T-shirts that the staff wear that say net zero. So it's pretty high level of commitment. More seriously, there's a, there's a plan in place to move from 75% to 100% use of treated wastewater by expanding into the airport area, service area. So that all that water that, some of it goes to the geysers, some of it gets used in golf courses. It's now all going to be used. That's pretty cool. And then the other thing that they're doing, which you probably folks have heard about, is the biosolids treatment to create on-site biochar that then will also be used in the town of Windsor. So the biosolids are now shipped out into some farmer's yard in Stockton or something like that. We're going to now keep all that, and it's going to be through pyrolysis reduced to biochar and then used in the town of Windsor. And that will get to a net zero, yes.
Do you have any documentation about that, or where can I read more about?
If you, I just looked today on they have all kinds of handouts on it, but on the town of Windsor website.
Okay.
If you just Google net zero Windsor, it'll come up and they have a whole page on it.
Sweet. Thank
It
you.
doesn't seem like it's very rich in detail about the biochar and whatnot. And they were like, oh, it's coming. They're like developing the plans now. And maybe by 2026, it will be happening. So
So will there be an EIR?
I think that has been, I don't know where the EIR is in the process, but I believe that has already been completed, but that could be wrong.
That sounds like a negative declaration or something. So that one slipped through in my opinion.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't quote me as the person saying it's all good.
We'd love to know more about the impacts, the air quality impacts and
Right,
other kinds of
right.
impacts. A lot of research on this in China.
Mhm. Make a note to share that. All right, that's my.
Thank you. Proceeding along.
Yeah, I don't have anything particular to report, although I'm sure Tom will fill us in on what's going on in the city of Sonoma.
Thanks. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. So, Stephanie from Healdsburg, we had a big week in active transportation at Healdsburg City Council. On Monday, we had the presentation of the draft of our active transportation plan that was prepared by Fair and Peers. And we had the draft presentation rather than the final because we wanted our city council to have time to give input. So anyway, this turned out to be a 3.5 hour, 4 hour meeting. So we were all there pretty late. I was there along with some other cycling and pedestrian advocates. It was difficult in that there's sort of this vibe that like we're doing enough already because we already have in our long-term plans to revitalize a section of Healdsburg Avenue and a section of another residential street or mixed-use street called Grove Street. But we have a need inside of our city center to have more active transportation, more bike lanes, more walking paths. And so I just think it's kind of a struggle it's almost like the feedback was like, you're already asking for so much and now you're asking for more. So anyway, we have more work to do there. However, it was so well, it was supported by the public. The council kept saying, oh, we haven't had this many public comments on anything in a while. So that was good to see. So there's positives there. And then we also have another thing going on, which is a pet project of mine, is idle-free schools. And Healdsburg Unified just for this school year has started adopting idle-free school for school programs. So they have signs posted at their pickup lanes, which I don't know if anyone's been to a school pickup recently, but it's a lot of idling vehicles for a long amount of time in the same spot around school kids, which is really bad for developing lungs. So we are officially an idle-free district, but we just need to do the educational part of the campaign. So I'm volunteering at my daughter's school festival this afternoon, teaching. We're making carbon dioxide out of gumdrops. And and we're talking about why people should turn off their engines. So that's another project that has been going well. And, it's just been grassroots, but it's happening. So thank you. I'm sure I'm missing other stuff, but that's all.
Especially on nice days like today when I go pick up my kids. Beautiful outside. People are going to be idling in their cars with the air conditioner on. So anyway, sorry. I don't have anything, but I would love to see any artwork or something.
Oh yeah, I can share.
Give me an email.
things that come to mind from the West County. Armstrong Redwoods is growing by 360 acres, just announced. The new property will not be immediately accessible, but over the next few years, I think the plan is to open it to the public, so.
Awesome.
Very cool.
That's awesome. So Pete's going to give you really the lowdown on Petaluma. I've got a couple items. There's a screening coming up as part of Zero Waste Sonoma's Zero Waste Week on October 16th next week of the documentary Common Ground. It's going to be on the 16th at doors open at 5:45. It's at the Raven Theater in Healdsburg. And I don't know if we can pass invitations along to the board, but that'll be awesome. There's going to be a great panel on regenerative agriculture afterward. In Los Angeles, we're working on a healthy soils master plan. And we've got a NASA scientist that's helping us identify, using satellite technology, identify the best places to put compost that will be most beneficial to create healthy soils, to sequester carbon dioxide. And then we're going to, after we pilot it there, we're going to make it available for municipalities across the state. And of course, we'll roll it out here as well. We're putting together a meeting with statewide groups like Cool Petaluma and Resilient Neighborhoods from San Rafael to figure out what are the best practices that are working on local organizing to address climate action plans. That's why I'm interested in the climate action plan. Like what's working best? Can we collaborate and combine forces and create a model that we can spread to other cities that don't have that going on? So if you have any organizations that want to join that call, the organizing call, let me know. Our Purple Cup pilot, you may have seen billboards about in Petaluma, is coming to an end at the end of this month. And then we're going to launch a reusable Zero Waste. Petaluma is going to launch a reusables effort because the Purple Cups are made of plastic, and we don't love that. And lastly, there's a big conversation about artificial turf in Petaluma. And if you're interested in addressing that in your jurisdiction, we've got lots of good information because artificial turf is made of chemicals and it's got PFAS, and it's actually hotter than concrete in hot sun and has bad health impacts on young children and athletes. So that's all.
Okay. These weren't on my list, but I would love to see anti-idling advisories passed in all our jurisdictions. Not with, maybe no penalties, but just an advisory.
I want to just tell you, Healdsburg has an ordinance that you're not allowed to idle.
Oh.
However, the behavior is a different thing, right? And we even went to the police department and said, can we do something about this? And they were basically like, no. So for many reasons. However, I will happily share with the group all of my anti-idling resources. We've been doing this project for a long time, so I know you all know why it's important.
And also, I filled out this morning an SCTA transit or transportation survey that is now live online. I encourage everybody to go there. It's short, but I think it will have an impact. Petaluma is in the process, an extended process of updating our general plan. The land use land use framework is now up for public review, and it's dense, it's meaty. I'm encouraged to see that they are incorporating a lot of the language of the 15-minute neighborhood concept that our community group brought to Petaluma about 2 years ago when we had an AIA SSTAT team come to town. The blueprint for climate action is now also up for public review, and I have not yet looked at it. It's very discouraging to me that a very visible street active transportation project in Petaluma inadvertently pitted residents against us active transportation advocates. And it's become a very polarizing political issue of bikes versus parking. And it really, really saddens me to see this polarization. In Petaluma, our active transportation plan, which is an update of our 2008 bike ped master plan, our active transportation plan has been in the works for at least 2 years. It was supposed to come before City Council a year ago. There is still no draft for us to review. I'm a community member on our Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee, ad hoc tasked with reviewing and making comment on the ATP, and still at this late date, there is nothing. I learned today that the city of Petaluma owns 14 electric school buses that are not used much. I learned that the city is working on a citywide grazing plan, and I have no further detail about that. I've taken on the job of, again, planning this year's holiday lighted bike ride, it was big last year, and I've gotten greedy and I want more this year. 2 more things. We have a Blue Zones team in Petaluma that's been operating for a year now, that is working on every imaginable aspect of health and community and mobility, and they're spread really thin, but they're doing good work. And they're also now partnering in a few small ways with Cool Petaluma to extend their reach into blocks. Last thing is a group that Andy and I are part of, Climate Action Petaluma, hosted a city council candidates climate forum, I think 2 weeks ago. All 7 candidates for city council participated, and the general feeling that I came away with is that all 7 candidates at least state their support for climate action goals, active transportation, street trees, better land use, but with only 1 or 2 exceptions, they really struggle to come up with any specific concrete actions for how to get there. I see that that's the big gap. We voice a lot of support, but we don't know how to do what needs to be done yet. Thank you.
June shares again from District 5, and I just have a few little events coming up. And actually, first couple are in Sebastopol. We don't have our Sebastopol reps here today, so I'll go ahead and announce that at the Sebastopol Library tomorrow, there's a presentation on leveraging home landscapes for climate change, and that's at 2 o'clock tomorrow. So folks are interested. And then coming up on the 22nd of October, the county at the regional library in Sebastopol again is going to be your energy efficient and resilient home workshop from the County of Sonoma Energy and Sustainability Department. And so that's 6 o'clock on the 22nd. And then last item I just wanted to mention is actually coming up in Santa Rosa regarding the ordinance that was passed in Santa Rosa as well. There were ordinances passed, as you may know, around the county, most of the jurisdictions in the unincorporated county around not allowing permitting of new gas stations or the expansion of the current gas stations. And RCPA helped a lot on those ordinances and providing information to jurisdictions on that. And that didn't include any permits that were in progress. And the ones for Santa Rosa that were in progress, most of them have been withdrawn or they were defeated. There's one left, and it's actually coming up for at the Planning Commission on October 24th at 4:30, that Planning Commission meeting in Santa Rosa. And this is for 874 North Wright Road. And the documents are yet to be put online, or maybe if you go on now, they might be there for the it's called Elm Tree Station Project. And so encourage folks that are interested to get engaged in that as that is starting to move forward now. And we'd like to see it not move forward.
I'm new here, but I have noticed in all the bodies that I've sat on, either at a table or in the audience, when it comes to the active transportation plan, or planning of any new development, the issue of traffic related to school pickup and drop off comes up all the time. Whether by members, seated members of the planning commission or members of the audience. And it's come to our attention that I don't believe that that's actively addressed in the plan, the active transportation plan, where there's communication with school districts. There also seems to be a divide between how the, like when they redesign, remodel a school, in the case of one elementary school in Rohnert Park, they had a lot of bike parking. And when they remodeled, they replaced it with two very small waves, randomly placed. So they severely reduced the number of bike parking. At the same time, they dramatically increased vehicle parking. They added an entire additional parking lot, and then the whole parking to eliminate the double parking that was occurring. They added parking, street parking for pickup and drop off. So actually myself and Shirley were trying to organize a conversation with the city council, the Department of Public Safety and the school district to at least start a conversation about how we can encourage students to engage in active transportation, and how that might really help with eliminating the issue with idling by reducing the number of vehicles that are used. That's what we got so far, at least for me.
Yeah, I concur. There was a mind melt going on there as we were hearing about safe routes to school. So we will have a presentation in Rohnert Park to the school district because Petaluma has a great safe route to school program going on, and we're trying to bring that into Rohnert Park.
Great. Wow. So lots of great stuff going on all around the county. In the Sonoma Valley and specifically in the city of Sonoma, we still don't have any budget allocation for our Climate Action Commission. We still don't have a person to fill the half-time sustainability coordinator position that we had. However, we do have increasing staff and volunteer coordination. So our volunteer commission has formed ad hocs, and we are now going point by point through our climate mobilization strategy, which of course, like most of your jurisdictions, are pointed toward net zero by 2030, which at this point, I don't know, I think it's 2025 almost, and we still haven't really begun moving. But despite these goals and the fact that climate action, being a climate action leader, is a city council goal, we really haven't made much. We're just in the early stages of getting this started. We have a new staff planning person who's meeting with us at the commission. And we, in the specific area of buildings, we are starting to look at these REACH codes, as I mentioned earlier. So we're very eager to hear some of BC's findings and how we might be able to leverage Bay Rent and other programs. And then let's see, in the transportation area, I want folks to be aware of so we, and at the state level, we are under SB 375, which says all the communities need to have sustainable community strategies to reduce vehicle miles traveled. And what we don't have at the local level is any way to say, here's how this particular program, active transportation, you've got an active transportation program in Healdsburg. Did they tell you how much that's going to reduce VMT in your jurisdiction and how far from, the region-wide goal we're going to be? Hopefully it should be there, but I haven't seen that to date in ATP implementation.
They went that far.
Yeah. So what's happening right now is the regional metropolitan planning organizations have submitted a letter to CARB and said, hey, we think we should pause implementation of this pretty aggressive vehicle miles traveled greenhouse gas reduction goal. But they haven't, to my mind, I don't see the arguments for why they have enough reason to do that. So we're recommending at Sierra Club, we still haven't written anything publicly yet, so this is just a tentative personal opinion of mine, that if we do see an implementation pause, that should result in a reduction in monies for roadway projects or for roadway repair work, and that money would then go into escrow so that then when the pause is ended, it can be deployed rapidly to catch us back up on whatever delay a pause might require. So just keep your minds, thinking about how the state, the regional to our local all play together. Absolutely right about school districts and anti-idling and the bus situation. I went to a school board meeting where our bus person said, I really want, $400,000 to buy the last two diesel buses in California because I can't trust the e-buses that I got, the first generation US manufactured electric buses. And this, despite my protestations, the board approved those investments in diesel buses, which obviously, I remember sitting in the back of a bus when I was a kid, get smoked out. Good news is we have some progress working with our local business and tourism development community toward big broad term still, but climate smart tourism. And one of the key elements of that discussion is an electric trolley. Might be a free hop on, hop off for tourists, for employees, for local residents. And the idea that popped into our heads the other day is that might be something that could be shared with Sonoma County Transit in our local circulator loop, our Route 30 in Sonoma. Most of the jurisdictions have free local circulators right now. So this idea of, where is a big bus necessary versus where is another alternate method, that there needs to be some organized planning around those two things when they're both being potentially publicly subsidized. The other thing is, because we're so budget constrained, and I want to thank Steve Pierce for this too, we've been investigating the return on investment for the money we currently spend on participating in Sonoma Clean Power's Evergreen program. And I'm in receipt of a justification of that program from CEO Jeff Cyphers, but it kind of sidesteps the core issue from the perspective of a municipal city customer, which is we're spending money on climate action, but how much reduction are we getting for that money? And maybe that money could be redeployed at the local government level. So we'll probably be having that discussion at our next commission meeting. I celebrate every retirement, and I know that I've learned that we're going to be having a change in leadership at Sonoma County Transit and at Public Infrastructure. Directors of those two departments are going to be stepping down. And so I'm looking for bold new leadership in those positions. and thanking the people who served so well in those jobs for so many years. And just let folks know that at the city level, we're also starting to look into embodied carbon analysis. It's missing right now in like CEQA, conventional CEQA, EIR, greenhouse gas reduction processes. And we don't think that makes any sense because obviously embodied carbon is now part of the state building code and it's coming. So that's my last update.
Excellent, thank you. Then I believe we have an update from RCPA.
And I'm gonna give a quick update. Yeah.
Perfect.
The first two things that I wanted to mention are some of our upcoming community engagement events that we have. The first being an induction cooking expo, which will be on October 19th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. at Premier Bath and Kitchen in Santa Rosa. This will be a great hands-on opportunity for people to explore what induction cooking may look like and also talk to staff about some of the rebates and the incentives that are available, not only for induction cooktops, but also energy efficiency and electrification upgrades for their homes. And always a fun event. We had really great turnout when we had a similar event last January, and highly encourage anyone to attend, but also would love to tap into your existing networks to promote this. And
Where do we get the information?
and we will follow up with you after. I do have a few flyers if you're interested in just seeing that, but definitely passing along like the Eventbrite link and some of the information would be great. It was also mentioned briefly, but we are in the midst of our Your Energy Efficient and Resilient Home Workshop series, which is led by the County of Sonoma's Climate Action and Resiliency Division in partnership with Bayron. And again, another really great opportunity to bring community members together. Those are typically hosted through the regional libraries. And while they are in specific jurisdictions, we attend anyone to attend those, even if you're not a part of that specific jurisdiction. And so during these workshops, they talk about some of the available incentives, rebates, and financing options, but also provide a great forum for people just to come in and ask questions to some true energy and building experts and walk through the process. And some of our workshops are actually coming up. We have two tomorrow, one at the Sonoma Valley Regional Library, which will be our Spanish workshop. And then tomorrow we also have an English workshop at the Cotati Ray Miller Community Center. And that will include a mini induction cooktop expo before the workshop begins. And then we have our last workshop of this season at the Sebastopol Regional Library on October 22nd. And one other thing that I wanted to mention, just as a little bit of a sneak peek, some of you may be or may already be aware that Barron's single family program is undergoing a redesign. And I wanted to announce that the program is expected to be having a soft launch in January 2025 and a full launch as we approach spring, most likely, of 2025, with the new name being Barron's Ease Home Program, Efficiency and Sustainable Energy Home Program. And again, that'll be pivoting towards a comprehensive concierge service for residents, which will combine a handful of Bayron specific rebates, which again will be pivoting towards weatherization and building envelope as well as remediation measures, and pulling in all of the wonderful rebates that are now rolling out and making sure those are wrapped in, connecting residents with contractors and recognizing that rebate paperwork is often a big barrier. So we're hoping to pull that into this upcoming program design. So we'll have a more comprehensive presentation on this at our next meeting, most likely. And one other thing, I would love to be able to attend is it a community workshop or pulling community partners together to talk about climate action implementation? I'd love to be a part of that. Yeah. And that's all I have for my immediate Barron updates. And if you ever have any questions, Bayron is, it's a comprehensive portfolio of programs. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with anyone about it if they're interested in specific programs, and how to partner with your specific cities on those. So,
What is a mini induction stove?
it's not a mini induction stove. It's just a very quick demo. But a mini induction stove could be fun, but
Pretty cool.
yeah,
Heating up your coffee in the morning.
yeah.
But there is that mini induction burner that you can drop on top of your gas
Like
burner.
standalones, yeah.
Standalone, which is a great Christmas present for somebody that doesn't have one.
Yeah.
I had a question about, BC said that the building stock assessment is coming and is going to be a key data point for us to reference from. And I asked about residential contractor services, but one of the things that I've been hearing anecdotally that you guys should be thinking about is for a long time, we were pushing for mini split heat pump installations, zonal control and all of that. What I'm hearing in a lot of quotations of people that are getting their homes, getting quotes for heat pumps is more like a conventional box swap where they would pull out the furnace and put a central heat pump in, which would then still use the ducting system subject to all of those losses. And sometimes they'll use the asbestos ducting requirement to not seal the ducts, all of those kinds of bypass for really not achieving, and they're still $20,000 jobs. So we should probably be collecting data on that. And I assume Bayren is doing that at some level, or somebody in the utility system is looking at granular tracking of the types of jobs that are actually going in. So it's just something for us to be paying attention to as we think about our workforce and what we really want to be promoting. Because losing 20-30% to the ducts is not a good idea, and still having to turn the whole house on to get one room conditioned.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
All right, any other RCPA updates? That's it for now. Any last announcements? I have one. Don't hesitate to take snacks for the road. Seriously. In that case, we will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone, for coming today.
First meeting, so what do you think, Steve?
Part of the new charter.
It was up.
Be part of the new charter update.